Okay, so you're probably wondering, who am I? Okay, my name is Mark Jones. No, I'm not a fresher here, okay? I have studied the BPC at the University of Law. I did it last year. I completed the course 2018 to 2019, and while studying on the course, okay, I obtained an offer for pupillage at number 5 Chambers. So today I'm going to talk to you about in-of-court scholarships. Actually, a lot of the advice I give in terms of applications and interviews will really transfer over into pupillage applications as well, okay? So I imagine I see lots of GDL students here, final year LLB as well, okay? You know, I thought today I was a little bit nervous because we got this camera crew, so I thought I'd better be on my A game. And then 2 young ladies outside told me they had travelled all the way from Liverpool, so thank you for those who have travelled. Welcome to the university, and I hope I do a good job now. So here we are. We're here today for scholarships, okay, the scholarships from the Inns of Court. So first of all, you might be wondering, well, what are the Inns of Court? Okay, there are 4 Inns of Court. They serve very, very important functions in the education of barristers, okay? They really date back sort of 15th, 16th century, so they are almost prehistoric, if you like, institutions, okay? They are known as Middle Temple, Lincoln's Inn, Gray's Inn, and Inner Temple, okay? They all have their own distinct sort of personalities, if you like. Perhaps some of you have been to an inn. There may be 1 or 2 who are members of inns. You can go onto all of their websites. You can read up about them. I'm going to take you through some brief statistics, but they're really going to focus on the statistics in terms of the scholarships, etc. So please do, in your spare time, go on and have a look at the inns, okay? I should say that each inn has its own list of very, very prestigious members, okay? There will be current Supreme Court justices who are members of perhaps Middle Temple or Gray's Inn. A current example, okay, Baroness Lady Hale, the current president of the Supreme Court, is a member of Gray's Inn, okay? I am also a member of Gray's Inn, okay? So I am on that list of very, very prestigious people, okay? Yes, I did just put myself on a pedestal with Baroness Lady Hale, okay? So what are the types of scholarships which these inns award, okay? They award scholarships for your GDL. So perhaps you're here, you're non-law, you need to do the GDL. We do obviously provide the GDL here at the University of Law, and inns do sponsor that, okay? Primarily tonight we'll be focusing on the BPTC. Okay, some of you may be aware the BPTC is changing its name to the BPC. Don't worry about that too much, okay? The content is vastly remaining the same. That's really the focus of tonight's talk, okay, on the BPTC and the scholarships in which they offer. I've included on there that they do offer pupillage award top-ups. Okay, pupillages really do range in terms of how much money they offer. Some top sets will offer 60, 70, maybe even £80,000 a year, okay? One of my friends has actually bagged one of them. I'm sure he's a very, very happy man. Okay, but they really do then go right down almost to £12,000, £13,000 a year, okay? And if you are on a lower end pupillage award, okay, the inns will top that up for you. They're not so generous that if you're fortunate enough to be on an £80,000 scholarship, they'll make that to £95,000, okay? But, you know, you might want to try that. Again, they do offer post-BPTC travel internships and bursaries. We won't focus on that tonight. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, okay? But you should be aware that they do also offer things like that. So when you choose your inn, what are the types of things that you may consider? Well, here are a list of some of the things which you may consider, okay? You may consider the history of the inn. As I've said, all of these inns go back hundreds of years, okay? They all have their own distinct sort of historical memories, members, etc. Okay, so you might be someone who's really, really interested in that, okay? And you might consider that. The previous members, okay? Mahatma Gandhi was a member of Inner Temple, for example. That might persuade you. I don't know. Perhaps that persuades you to join that inn, okay? Also look for current members. I mentioned earlier that Baroness Hale was a member of Gray's Inn, okay? It is not uncommon for students to be dining in Gray's Inn and for her to walk into a qualifying session or something like that, okay? So you might want to look at the list of members they have. If you're very much into your food, okay, you may consider the food which they offer. That always gets a bit of a laugh because, you know, food is a funny thing to consider when choosing an inn. I wouldn't place too much emphasis on that, okay? But you might consider the food. International aspect, certain inns have very strong ties to certain countries around the world, okay? So some inns are quite strong ties with Commonwealth countries, for example. And even within the United Kingdom, Some inns, Grays, are known for being particularly strong with Welsh candidates, okay? Now, I say that as a Welshman myself. That may put you off from going to Gray's Inn, okay? So please be aware that it is known as an inn which Welsh people like to consider, okay? The arts, finally, I'm sure we've probably got some people who are very much into their theatre. A little secret of mine, okay, I was once Danny Zuko, believe it or not. I had greased back hair, okay? So you may consider the arts. They do all host their own sort of shows and Christmas shows or things like that, and that might be something that interests you. Now, much more important for you to focus on is this list here, okay? And really, the first and last point are the most important, okay? The scholarship application criteria. Each one has very similar application criteria, but there are some differences, and you can go on their websites and look them up. I'm going to talk to you really tonight about the generic scholarship application criteria, but do be aware that each inn might look for just slightly different things. Where your friends go. Okay, I always perhaps laugh at this one. You might choose that you actually don't want to go where your friends go. They might not really be your friends, for example. Okay, so you might want to go somewhere where nobody else goes, okay? And some students like to do that. They feel that that will perhaps push them out of their comfort zone. So please do just consider that as well. Early access to opportunities such as mooting or mentoring, okay? All of the inns are very good at offering opportunities for you to engage in things like mooting and mentoring. But please do go online, have a look at perhaps specifically what they're offering, and then, factor that into your decision, okay? All of these things look really good on your CV, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on. The location itself, all of the inns are here in London, okay? So for those two ladies who have travelled down from Liverpool, you're not going to be able to join an inn in Liverpool, unfortunately. So you will have to join an inn, okay, here in London. But perhaps you might want to look specifically where the inn is located, okay? For example, Lincoln's Inn itself has many chancery sets. So do think about the location of the inn. This final one is definitely the most important, okay? I'm going to talk about all of their specific application forms, but be aware that all of their application forms differ slightly. And you might look at that application form and think, actually, that one really suits me, and that one doesn't, okay? That is by far the most important point that I would make tonight, okay, whether or not the application form suits you. Okay, so a little bit about Gray's Inn then. There's just some very brief points about Gray's Inn, okay? Gray's Inn is known as quite a small inn, 5,500 members, 300 students, okay? It has a scholarship pot of £1.2 million. Okay, not all of that is focused on the BPTC. Okay, that goes a bit to GDL and things like that, but a pot of £1.2 million. Gray's Inn offers residential scholarships. Not all of the inns do that, okay? Gray's Inn requires 2 referees. This is 1 professional and 1 academic. There is on Gray's Inn website a big long list of what will qualify as a professional referee, etc. So please go online. I'm sure you'll know someone who is a professional referee, and obviously an academic referee could be a tutor, a teacher, or something like that. Gray's Inn, and this is probably the most important point on this slide, operates a paper sift. Okay, essentially what that means is that when you fire off your application to Gray's Inn, somebody, a barrister, will read that application and will decide whether or not to invite you to an interview. Okay, not all of the inns do that. Now, I include this paper sift on there because if you are a candidate who thinks that they are very strong on paper, perhaps you've got an outstanding CV already, you may want to consider applying for a scholarship at an inn which operates a paper sift, okay? Because by the time you get to an interview, you have already been narrowed down from everybody else, okay? Again, on the flip side of that, of course, I would say that if perhaps you're reading this tonight and you're thinking that you're not quite where you'd like to be in terms of your CV, you may look at one of the inns that doesn't operate a paper sift, okay? Gray's Inn, again, this is the same actually for all inns, but I have included it on each PowerPoint in case people wanted to take photos, etc. Scholarship is awarded on merit alone, okay? No inn is going to give you a scholarship based on your socio-economic background. It is solely based on merit. Once they have decided to award you a scholarship, they may then take into account your financial need, okay? But the actual awarding of a scholarship is only done on merit. Lincoln's Inn. Lincoln's Inn is the largest inn by some way, okay? You can compare that to Gray's Inn with 5,000 members, 23,000 members, okay? 800 current students. Again, Lincoln's Inn has residential scholarships, so if that's something that interests you, you may consider Gray's Inn. And it has a large scholarship pot of £1.7 million. Again, it's 2 references, very, very similar to Gray's. Okay, and again, Lincoln's Inn does operate a paper sift. So bear in mind all of the information I just told you about paper sifts, etc. I've mentioned this is the same for all the inns, okay? Again, scholarship awarded on merit alone, and then financial need is considered. Middle Temple. Middle Temple, again, is one of the smaller inns, 5,000 members, a very, very similar size to Gray's Inn, okay? No residential scholarships available here at Middle Temple, with a scholarship pot of £1.3 million available. References, there's no specification on the website for references, okay? And Middle Temple interviews every single scholarship applicant, okay? That must be some challenge for them. If I'm honest with you, I really don't know how they manage that, but they do, okay? They will interview every single scholarship applicant. I have included on there the dates of interview. I thought that might be some quite useful information because you may look at that date and realise, I don't know, that you've booked a holiday with your boyfriend and girlfriend, so you can't actually make that date, okay? So please do consider that date. The 15th, 16th and 17th of April 2020 is when this inn will be carrying out their interviews. Again, scholarship awarded purely on merit, okay? There's not going to be a change there. Your financial need is then considered. So the final inn, okay, Inner Temple, 8,000 members at Inner Temple. It's slightly larger than Gray's, okay, with 300 students. Again, no residential scholarships here, and a pot of £1.8 million available. Okay, that is a very, very large pot. Not to sound like I'm an auctioneer up here, but that is quite sizable, okay? 2 references, and again, they interview all applicants, okay? They do state on their website that this is their intention, so there's a bit of a word of warning there. Last year, they did interview all applicants, okay? But they state that it's always their intention to do so, okay? But I would perhaps issue a word of warning that that might mean that they don't interview every single one. Okay, paper application has been open a very long time. That's true for all of the inns, okay? So you can go online right away and look up the application. Okay. A handy comparison then, if you're perhaps still undecided about, if you're still a little bit undecided about which one, okay, you can go on to chamberstudent.co.uk and have a look. That will give you a very, very handy comparison of the inns, okay. Just an example there, it gives you perhaps the precise amounts of money that each inn offers for their specific scholarships. Okay. This is a very, very broad brush, okay, criteria of what the inns are looking for when they award scholarships. Please do feel free to take a photo of this page, okay? If I'm in it, I better look handsome, okay? So intellectual ability first. How do we demonstrate intellectual ability? The number one way in which you can demonstrate your intellectual ability is through your grades, okay? I get asked tons and tons of questions about how important are grades, etc. Okay, I'm going to give you an honest answer. Grades are important. If they weren't important, we wouldn't measure them, okay? So grades are by far the best way for you to demonstrate your intellectual ability. They are not the sole way in which you can demonstrate your intellectual ability, okay? You can demonstrate your intellectual ability when you have provided outstanding analytical ability. So think about moments in your life, perhaps, when you have demonstrated that. When have you demonstrated outstanding written communication? That might be through something such as a dissertation or something like that. It might be through a paid position. Okay, but times when you have demonstrated outstanding written communication. Any extracurricular involvements? You know, sometimes perhaps I meet a student who's sort of flown Eurofighter jets. Okay, it's taken him 8 years to achieve these qualifications. Okay, that is an outstanding extracurricular activity that he has had to pass, or she has had to pass many, many tests in order to get there. So that can then again start to demonstrate outstanding intellectual ability. Finally, any research projects or perhaps publications, things like that. Have you had any of them? Second of all is your motivation. This is really crucial, especially when you come to designing your CV, okay, your motivation for studying the career at the bar. You will all have trigger experiences throughout your life that have brought you into this room today, okay? There will be something that has made everybody consider a career at the bar. If you weren't considering a career at the bar, you wouldn't be sat here today, Alternatively, of course, you could be, because we have had to move a lecture last minute to get this room. So if you are in the wrong room, you're free to leave at any moment. Don't be embarrassed. Okay, but we will all have our own reasons for being here. So think about what they are. What knowledge of the actual profession do you have? The way in which law works in everyday life, okay, when real life people are involved, is very, very different to how you read it in a textbook. Okay, so what knowledge of the actual profession do you have? And how do we demonstrate that? Okay, well, the easiest way for us to demonstrate knowledge of the bar is through mini pupilages. Could we have a rough show of hands? Have some people conducted mini pupilages in this room? Okay, excellent. That's a fair amount. Okay, if you haven't, hopefully you know the process. I will tell you it anyway. Okay, you go on directly onto Chambers' websites. They will have a little section there titled Recruitment. Click on that recruitment, and they will spell out an application procedure for a mini pupillage. It will usually be simply sending off a cover letter, okay, and your CV. So please do go and seek mini pupilages, etc. They are great on your CV. Networking. What networking events have you demonstrated? Okay, have you built connections, etc. within the legal world? Sitting in court. Have you marshalled perhaps a judge? Have you worked for a solicitor's, which has involved you attending court with a client? Okay, all of these start to demonstrate real life knowledge of the profession. Finally, any paid employment or pro bono work you may have done. Pro bono is very, very in at the moment, okay? It looks great on your CV. So please, if you haven't done any pro bono work, after today, go and seek some out, okay? It's generally, students can get their hands on pro bono pretty quickly, and it's something that a lot of chambers and the inns are looking for. Advocacy potential, oral advocacy, like the type I'm giving now, okay? Mooting is by far, in my opinion, the best way for you to demonstrate oral advocacy. Mooting, essentially, is the closest that you can get to actually performing as if you were a barrister without being a barrister. Chambers, inns of courts, the lot, okay? They absolutely love it on your application. So again, if you perhaps know a local mooting society, if your university runs one, you should be signing up right away. Any debating, perhaps you're interested in politics, things like that, often students are, so again, think about times when you have debated. Written advocacy. A large proportion of what a barrister does in terms of advocacy is written advocacy, okay? Be that sending letters to clients, okay, drafting documents, writing opinions for solicitors. Actually, probably the majority of the advocacy they deliver is written. The application itself will serve as your written advocacy, so please do spend a lot of time on it. Times when you've had to perhaps stick to your guns, argue your corner, perhaps you've sat on a committee, okay, which has involved you putting forward your ideas against other people, okay, they are all opportunities for you to demonstrate those final 3 points. Your personal qualities, that is by no means an exhaustive list of personal qualities that you need to thrive at the bar. Okay, whether or not you know this or not, barristers are governed by rules and regulations, okay, and they are absolutely vital for us in practice. Your integrity is vital as a barrister, and the inns will want you to demonstrate this and your knowledge of this, okay, on your application form. So please try and pick out instances when you have demonstrated some of those qualities. Okay, so when is the deadline? Very soon, quite frankly. Friday, the 1st of November. I don't know, is it the 17th today? It's the 17th. Okay, so you don't have long, 2 weeks. So please, start tomorrow morning or even start tonight writing your application, okay? They do take a very, very long time. If you're sat here non-law, I'm not sure if we have any, perhaps you have a friend who's considering the GDL. The application for the GDL scholarship is Friday the 1st of May 2020. These dates are the same for all inns, okay? None of the inns differ from this. Preparing your CV. Preparing your CV is fundamental to you writing a good application, quite frankly. You need to have an up-to-date, coherent and detailed CV, and it needs to be organised. There is a list of things and the way in which you should structure your CV, okay? Your education should come first. That should be your undergraduate or your most recent study, be that a master's or something like that. Education first. Any scholarships or awards which you have been offered. A scholarship essentially acts as a character witness for you, okay? Somebody has looked at you, interviewed you, read your application, and has thought that you are worth investing money in, okay? So please do include any scholarships. Your legal work experience, again, I've talked about motivation and knowledge of the bar. Paid employment, that can begin to demonstrate some of those personal qualities which I was just talking about. Pro bono and voluntary work, I've said the importance of those, and obviously public speaking, I've mentioned the importance of advocacy at the bar. Responsibilities and achievements, again, these go to your character. If you have held a position of responsibility, essentially that means that enough people have looked at you and thought that you were a suitable candidate perhaps to captain them or to represent them in some form. Okay, so again, they go to your character. Your interests, please tell us a little bit about what you're interested in, okay? You perhaps all have slightly unique interests. Someone might just read your application form and think, I'm very, very interested in that as well, and I'd like to meet this person. Okay, when you then have drafted your CV, treat yourself as a client, okay? Look at your CV and think to yourself, well, what are my helpful facts? Okay, here is a list of some of the helpful facts. They're excellent marks in particular modules or essays. I've talked about the importance of grades, so any excellent marks which you have are very, very important. If you're sat here, perhaps you had a 2-1 at university and you just missed a first, please bracket your specific mark, okay? If you had 68 or 69%, please bracket that to show that you were on the upper end of that 2-1. Similarly, okay, if you've done really, really well in your dissertation, please include that specific mark, okay? 80%, whatever it may be. Mooting or debating, I've really talked about the importance of mooting, okay? But these are fundamental, and it's almost a tick box, if you like, on your application. Has this person got good grades? Tick. Has this person got mooting or debating? Tick. Acting or public speaking, okay? I've mentioned that I myself in the past was an actor, a pretty bad one at that. But I included the fact that I had done some acting, okay, and that I was Danny Zuko. And in every single interview I think that I went to, bar maybe 2 or 3, okay, I was asked about Danny, Grease, Kinnicky, Sandy, or something like that. You'd be amazed, really you would. I know it's funny, I understand that, but you really would be amazed what people will pick up in your application. Okay, I was asked some incredibly weird questions about Danny and Sandy and even their relationship. So again, it does go to show just the sorts of things they'll pick up on. Part-time work, again, a very helpful fact. So what are our less helpful facts? Average academics, okay? I suspect on everyone's CV we have a mark which perhaps we're just not quite happy with, etc. So be prepared to be able to justify that, okay? Perhaps what went wrong on that day. Nobody in this room is infallible, okay? We all make mistakes. So what went wrong? No real mooting experience. Perhaps you're sat here, you think, I've never ever engaged in a moot. That's okay. It's not where we want to be. And my obvious advice to you is go out and seek some mooting experience. But think, what could take its place, okay? So start to fill in that gap. If you have no mini pupilages, well, start applying today, okay? You can literally send off mini pupilage applications instantly. They don't take long to draft at all if you have a coherent CV. Okay, so send off some applications for mini pupilages. Perhaps if it's too late now in terms of the in-of-court scholarship, what could take its place? Have you worked within a solicitor's office for a very long time? Have you been to court? Perhaps you've sat in witness trials, okay? All of these sorts of things could fill the hole of having no mini pupilages. No legal work experience, again, it's not a situation which we like to be in, but what could fill its place, okay? Perhaps you've done really, really well in terms of the academic study, something like that. Be able to answer why you haven't conducted any legal work experience. So after we've done that and we've divided our helpful facts and our unhelpful facts, okay, we then need to present our case. To me, the #1 tip in terms of writing application is using evidence. That might sound really, really simple, but often we see in application forms people just drafting what we call just claims, okay, baseless claims. I'm really interested in family law, or I would really love to join this chambers. Please provide evidence to your claims. I'm sure you are interested in family law, but where can I see that within your CV, okay? So please rely on the facts and use evidence, not just claims. Again, this really relates to show, don't tell me, okay? Tell me what you've done, okay? Show me what you've done. And again, just please keep your answers concise. So very, very often, your application form, etc., your pupillage application, whatever it may be, will have a set word limit. So you want to get as much information in there as possible. I'm going to run through some examples of what I mean by this, okay? So this person has said that they are a passionate defender of women's rights. Okay, I'm sure we can all agree, you know, that's a great thing, etc. But how do we actually verify that? Well, we call upon experience, okay? So volunteering with the National Centre for Domestic Violence has given me an insight into the issues surrounding the plight of women. Sorry, I forgot that right at the end. Okay, so there they have provided some evidence to back up their claim. Okay, straight away we can see, yeah, this person wouldn't have volunteered, okay, with the National Centre for Domestic Violence unless they were interested. It makes your answer much, much stronger, so please always use evidence. Again, another example, I like commercial law. Okay, that's really great, mate. I'm happy for you that you like commercial law. Okay, I like rugby, you like commercial law, that's fine. But what does this person actually do that demonstrates that he likes or she likes commercial law? I subscribe to The Economist and enjoy reading about commercial issues and how the law influences them. I can't seem to get reading that last bit out right, can I? Okay, this is an okay answer. It's much better than the first one, but it's by no means a great answer. This would be a much, much stronger answer if this person perhaps had done a mini pupillage, had worked within a commercial law solicitors, etc. Okay, so simply subscribing to a magazine. For all I know, okay, he could get that magazine through the post, his mum or dad pays for it, and he chucks it straight in the bin. Okay, so actual real life experience is going to always make your answer much, much stronger. Getting to the point, okay, whoever reads your application will read hundreds of applications, okay? There might be one place for a pupillage or for an in-of-court scholarship, whatever it may be, and there will be tons of you applying. So please make your application interesting, okay? A real pet hate of mine, which I see in applications, okay, and I used to do it as well, I try not to, but I'm sure it always still slips in, is saying, I was allowed to do something. Just put that you did it, okay? I understand you may have been allowed, you may have been told, yeah, you got the green light to do that. We don't need to know that. Just say you did it, okay? So please use active verbs, make your application interesting. Here's an example. I was able to contribute to the findings of the project by researching French immigration law. I got that one right. Okay, but how can we just tidy this up, just rearrange the words slightly? My research of French immigration law contributed to the findings of the project. When I was drafting my application forms, time and time again, I would have something which I thought was fine, and that first example is absolutely fine, but I would reread it and just think to myself, is there something I could just be doing slightly better, okay? That all takes a lot of time. It's not uncommon for applications to last 8 or 9 hours by the time you're happy with them. Again, another example, I had the opportunity to draft the final report. Just write that you drafted the final report. You're just using up space on your application form. Just keep your answers concise and simple. The interview itself, okay? Interviews are scary things. I accept that. I actually sat down 3 or 4 days ago and I spoke to 3 or 4 other boys on my course who had all got pupillage, and I asked them what did they do to prepare for their interviews, be that in-of-court scholarships or pupillage interviews. We came up with these 5 points, okay? Knowing your CV. So I've talked about the importance of drafting your CV. You then, after drafting it, you need to know it inside out, back to front. Okay, Chambers will read over, or in-of-courts, whatever, will read over your CV and will ask you very, very detailed questions on it. So you need to know all of the details. If you've done a mini pupillage at Chambers, okay, who did you shadow? What area of law were you witnessing, okay? What did you actually do and what did you learn from that? So please know all of those things on your CV. Anticipate common questions. I know sometimes that sounds funny. Please don't go in with too robotic answers, but please anticipate common questions. Things like, why do you want to be a barrister? Okay, that very often comes up in an interview. I call that sort of a first round interview question, if you like, an early on interview question. Perhaps just trying to settle the nerves, but just have a set answer to it. Engage in mock interviews, be that through your university, perhaps through our careers service. You can even ask your mum, dad, girlfriend, whatever it may be, boyfriend, to engage in mock interviews, okay? Print off a list of questions and get them to ask you those questions. You will thank yourself for it later. This 4th point, I understand this makes everybody cringe, okay? The idea of recording your answers and then watching them back. Trust me, I hate the sound of my own voice on a tape recording. I don't hate the sound of my own voice day to day. I love it, okay? But record your answers and watch them back. You will cringe. Trust me, you'll sit there going, oh, switch it off, but it will seriously, seriously help you. You will be your own worst critic, and you will pick up on tons of little verbal fillers, things that you say which you think, right, I will cut that out. Assume that everyone is assessing you. As soon as you walk through that door, everybody is assessing you as far as I'm concerned. It is not uncommon for barristers to go and speak to a secretary and say, what was Mark like? How did he walk through the door, etc. So some tips and horror stories. Do not get involved in waiting room psycho games. And I understand this sounds funny, but this happens. We've all sat tons and tons of exams, okay, in order for us to be right here in this hall. Tons of them. And you know, after every exam, I bet you come out and there's always that one man or lady, okay, who says, oh, I got, 69, and, there's another bloke going, oh, no, I got 45 and I definitely got it right. And you're there, your answer is, I don't know, the Netherlands or something like that. And you're thinking, oh my God, I've just messed this up, right? And then it comes back and you text them on results day and you say, how did you do, mate? Okay. And suddenly, they did a lot worse than you, and you're there thinking, oh, I was fine. You'll get tons and tons of people before the interview that will like to offload onto you and tell you everything they have done. Okay? Do not listen to them. They're probably not as strong candidate as you. Okay? So please do not get involved in waiting room psycho games. If you don't think this happens, again, I put this page together after speaking to my friends, and we all agreed that we had all experienced that, okay? Enthusiasm. I spoke to a practitioner once and I said, when you're in an interview, I said, what's the most important thing that you like to see, or the most important characteristic you like to see in any potential barrister? He told me enthusiasm. Okay, this is a profession where you need to be prepared to learn day on day. You cannot do that unless you are enthusiastic about the area of law in which you're going into. Okay, so please demonstrate your enthusiasm. Don't obviously walk through the door, bouncing around or whatever, okay? Keep that controlled, but don't be afraid to demonstrate enthusiasm. Punctuality, okay, please turn up early. If, don't run late, okay? That's sort of a bit of a give me, but arrange a train. If you're getting a train or public transport, arrange to get there early, okay? Because delays happen. So please do arrive on time. Wear a suit and a quiet tie. Okay, if you have a Mickey Mouse tie or something like that, okay, please just leave it at home for today. I'm sure, it's lovely, etc. You can wear it on Christmas Day if you like, but do not wear it to your interview. And always dress your best, okay? If you have, your really nice suit, I don't know what it might be, please do wear it. Finally, a little bit of humility, okay? So when you're there in that interview, perhaps, if you haven't worked out, yes, I am a little bit cocky, okay? I try and, not to be so cocky, but I just can't help it. But please do demonstrate some humility. Believe it or not, I do have some, okay? So just walk through the door, understand that you are being interviewed alongside other very, very talented candidates. Okay, so don't assume you've got it. I always have images, of Conor McGregor, like students walking through the door, okay? Try not to do that. Please do not assume that they have read your form. Okay, this is very, very important. Barristers live very, very busy lives where their schedules are constantly changing. Okay, they might be scheduled to read your application form and then interview, and then something comes up and no longer they can attend the interview and somebody totally different interviews you. Okay, I mentioned earlier that not all of the Inns of Court operate a paper sift. Can you imagine how many applications they get for that? I am sure it is not one barrister that reads every application and then interviews you. So please do not think, just because I put something amazing in my application form, okay, the person interviewing me has definitely read that, so I do not need to mention it. Obviously, I issue a word of warning. Please do not go in there and obviously read your application form out word for word. That would be equally weird, okay, but just do not assume that they have read your form. I've talked about behaviour before interview, but I just thought I would mention it again. Please always remember that everyone essentially is assessing you. Some questions I was asked. This is what you're all really here for, okay? Questions I was asked. I divide questions up. Questions about you as a person, okay? So what are some common ones? Oops. When have you had to manage time effectively? Think about instances when you've had to manage time effectively. Name a time. Okay, that is a very, very common question. Name a time when. Name a time when you have overcome a problem. Okay, had to persuade someone of something. Just think, before your interview, think about these sorts of questions. Okay, when have you had to engage in debate, discussion, etc.? Okay, this doesn't have to be legal related. I remember in my interviews being asked that, and I actually gave an answer that had nothing to do with law, okay? They then rejected me. No, I'm joking. Okay, what is your biggest weakness? It's easy to talk about your strengths. Trust me, I know more than anybody. Okay, it is very easy to talk about your strength. It is not easy to talk about your weaknesses. But think, we all have weaknesses. If we didn't, we wouldn't have strengths. So what are your weaknesses? Okay, and perhaps how can you address those weaknesses? Tell us about a time when you made a mistake. As I've mentioned earlier, we all make mistakes, okay? Make mistakes every day. Trust me, my boss always reminds me of them. But tell us about a time when you have made a mistake, okay? Think about these common sorts of questions. About the bar, then, that's the second type of question which I think often comes up. Why do you want to be a barrister, okay? As I mentioned earlier, there are reasons why we are all here in this room today. So what is it that makes you want to be a barrister? That is a very, very individual question, which only you can answer. If you're going to talk about perhaps that you really, really enjoy advocacy, okay, and that's why you want to be a barrister, remember now that lots of solicitors, okay, are engaging in more and more advocacy, okay, solicitor advocates, etc. So be prepared for a follow-up question, okay, you love advocacy, I'm very happy for you, so do I. But why do you not want to be a solicitor advocate then? So just think about the natural follow-up questions that might follow. Why do you want to work in crime, family, civil? Of course, that list could pretty much be never-ending, depending on the practice area where you're interviewing. But why do you actually want to practice in those areas? The bar faces, as I'm sure you're all aware, a lot of challenges, okay? And perhaps that's legal aid, that can be political, things like that, but lots and lots of challenges, okay? Be aware of the challenges that face the bar. And be aware of how perhaps you think they could be fixed. Okay, whether or not that's more funding for legal aid, okay, whatever it may be. But please be aware of some of the challenges and how you think we could overcome them. Some common exercises, okay, it's not uncommon for them to ask you to engage in some sort of exercise, perhaps immediately before the interview, or send you something before the interview in a week or two in advance. Statutory interpretation. Oops. Statutory interpretation, okay, you're given a statute and a factual pattern and you are asked to come up with the result, okay? They want to see, well, how do you apply the facts to this statistic? What is the mindset that's going on, if there is any, okay? Because sometimes I understand these things are complicated. So statute and factual pattern, what's the mindset? How did you get to that end result? Case analysis. I was sent a case analysis before one of my interviews, okay, big long case, asked to read it. Okay, read it again, I did, and read it again, make sure I understood everything. And then was asked tons and tons of very, very specific questions on it. Okay, so think about that, case analysis. Obviously, you do lots and lots of case analysis on your undergraduate degree. So you've got quite, good preparation, and I know on the GDL you do as well. Debate, usually given a statement and asked to persuade them against it, for or against it. This could really be anything, and this could be something that's in the news at the moment. Perhaps, I don't know, you'd have to argue. I was asked in an interview, okay, to argue for Donald Trump's wall, okay? Believe it or not, I know that sounds funny, okay? You need to be prepared, essentially, to put your personal feelings aside, okay? A lot of what a barrister does, there is your professional feelings, okay, and your personal feelings. And really, what you think of your client essentially doesn't change your professional duties towards your client, okay, to act in their best interest. Okay, you don't have to be friends with your client after the case, okay, but you still need to act in their best interest. So essentially, this is a test of that. Do you have the capability to do that? I might not think that Donald Trump's wall is a very smart idea, but do I have the capability to make arguments for it, even though I might think against it, okay? There's just some sort of propositions that they might ask you to argue against. Obviously, I can't possibly include all of them because they are very, very far-ranging. Okay, current legal affairs. This is incredibly important, really, from now on. You need to be keeping up to date with current legal affairs. And to some extent, actually, I would just get rid of legal in the middle of that, just current affairs, full stop. In your interviews, you will be asked questions on things that have been in the news. They will often be legal, but they are not always legal. And actually, sometimes when these sorts of things come into the news, they perhaps have a legal basis, but actually, there's a big moral argument about them, etc. So please keep up to date with your current legal affairs. There are a few great websites which you can follow. The Guardian is terrific, okay? The Guardian Law. The Times Law, okay? Even things like The Secret Barrister. Has anybody read The Secret Barrister? Excellent, okay? That will give you a real insight into the challenges that face the bar. It's written by an anonymous barrister who he or she documents their day-to-day sort of living, if you like, work at the bar, okay? They talk about a lot of the challenges that the bar faces. If you haven't heard of that website, please do write it down and go home and read about it. It's quite enjoyable to read, okay? So how do we actually answer questions? Well, please address the question and not the topic. So keep your answers focused on the actual question themselves, okay? And not just a broader range topic. If you need clarification, I would advise you to ask for it. Quite often in interviews, particularly second round interviews, when things, are really becoming very, very challenging, you will be asked complex and long questions. I was asked questions in interviews that perhaps lasted 90 seconds, 2 minutes, okay? And essentially, I was sat there at the end thinking, I don't know who Jimmy is or John or whoever. So please, ask for clarification if you need it. Hypothetical questions, be prepared for these, okay? You will be asked hypothetical questions. They are essentially there to assess, well, how do you structure your thoughts, and then how do you persuade somebody, okay? So think about, how would you structure your thoughts if you were asked this hypothetical question? I've mentioned earlier, okay, about verbal fillers. I've mentioned that I think the best way for you to iron those out is by filming yourself. That's by no means the only way. Okay, I'm sure you could ask a parent or a boyfriend or girlfriend, whoever it may be, to tell you some stupid stuff that you were doing during your interview, etc. But just iron out your verbal fillers before. Don't be baited. Okay, they will ask you to argue quite sometimes controversial topics. I remember when I was being interviewed, do you remember the case of Shamima Begum? Okay, the lady who flew to Syria. Okay, and then it was whether or not she should be allowed back into the United Kingdom. I was asked questions on that in quite a few interviews. That's quite a controversial topic, which sometimes emotions can run high with things like this. Okay, but please, if they are arguing against you in terms of the stance you take, do not start shouting or being wound up, okay? They probably don't think it. They are just testing you. So please do not be baited by this. Don't be afraid to show some personality. I think the number one mistake people make in interviews essentially is that they walk into an interview giving answers which they think sound good or that they think the interviewer would like to hear. That is then, they are no longer interviewing you, okay? They are interviewing somebody who is trying to guess the way in which they think. So please show your personality, okay? Remember that barristers are people essentially who judge character all the time, okay? And they use evidence, okay? And they see whether or not things fit. So if you are putting on a persona that just doesn't fit with your general CV, etc., they will be able to see through it. So please do not do that. Your body language, okay? I hope, this sort of speaks for itself in terms of body language. I've mentioned earlier about walking in like Conor McGregor, things like that. But body language, do sit upright, etc. Okay, well, thank you ever so much for listening to me. Here is an email address, pupillage@law.ac.uk. That email address will put you directly in contact with me. I'm the sole user of that, so you can address it as informally as you like. I will answer any queries, either tonight, right now, or via that email address.